now in the mighty name of Jesus. You're the God of signs and wonders. Do a wonder in her life today as we pull on your healing in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Welcome to this exciting and flavor-filled corporate wellness challenge, Healthy Recipe Cough.
We are the Sugar Industry Authority. We are raring to go and win the championship.
We are Team NHT. We're excited and we're here to claim the trophy.
Team CB is super excited and we are ready to showcase our talent.
This initiative demonstrates that healthy eating can be accessible and creative. Let's go!
Tune in to CVM Television this Good Friday, April 3rd at 8 p.m. Presented by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, a Jamaica Moves initiative.
Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jody Ann Quarry.
Brought to you by
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial.
Today is the 1st of April, and there's nothing funny about it. Tonight, a Jamaican politician's company is at the center of a multi-million-dollar tax exemption scandal at the University Hospital of the West Indies. The Integrity Commission and MOCA are investigating. Tonight, calls for the resignation and the question those calls are not answering. We're speaking with the head of the PAC as well as a government member. Then, Jamaica's post-Hurricane Melissa construction legislation is before Parliament. But two of the country's most respected civil society organizations say the bill, as drafted, is dangerous. Tonight, the specific provisions they want changed and why it matters for every Jamaican whose home, road, or community is still waiting to be rebuilt. And the price of a war half a world away is coming home to Jamaica. What can consumers expect at the supermarket, the gas pump, and the pharmacy, and when? This is Lead Story here on CVM Television. We begin with a developing story out of Parliament, where questions of accountability, political responsibility, and public trust are now colliding. This week, the Public Accounts Committee heard matters relating to the use of the tax exemption status of the University Hospital of the West Indies. The University Hospital of the West Indies is Jamaica's only teaching hospital. It holds tax-exempt status because it exists to serve the Jamaican public, to import medical equipment, supplies, and goods free of taxation, so that those resources can be directed to patient care. What the Auditor General has found, and what the Public Accounts Committee confirmed this week, is that tax-exempt status was used repeatedly to benefit private companies, 4 of them. And every single one of those companies operates in a sector that depends on contracts with public health institutions. Let me tell you who they are. Supreme Laundry Services, a commercial laundry company providing bulk laundry services to hospitals across Jamaica. Wilman Sales Company Limited, a wholesale supplier of office furniture, office supplies and janitorial products and related goods. The Auditor General's report specifically flagged the import of office furniture under the UHWI's tax exemption. Scientific Medical Services, a Caribbean-wide distributor of medical, scientific and dental supplies serving hospitals, laboratories, clinics, and pharmacies. And Jack Den Limited, a healthcare and janitorial services company that holds contracts at 6 major public health facilities in Jamaica, including the Kingston Public Hospital, the Bustamante Hospital for Children, Maypen Hospital, and Mandeville Regional Hospital. Jack Den also holds contracts at both Norman Manley and Sangster International Airports. The chairman of Jack then is Dennis Gordon, Member of Parliament for East Central St. Andrew, chairman of the PNP's Region 3, and a sitting member of the very Public Accounts Committee that is now examining this matter. He was absent from Tuesday's PAC meeting. The Integrity Commission has sequestered the files. MOCA, the major organised crime and anti-corruption agency, is taking agents from UHWI staff this week. Both investigations are active, and these allegations are under review. There have been no findings, however, of wrongdoing. Now, the man who presided over the hearing that we're discussing and had to pull some of these answers out joined me now. Julian Robinson, chairman of the Public Accounts Committee and member of Parliament for Central Kingston. Good evening and welcome.
No. Southeast St.
Southeast St. Andrew. My apologies. You can't mix it up.
I'm in no voice noting with my phone.
All right. Southeast St. Andrew MP. All right. But also...
But let me just correct something you said. You said Mr. Gunn absented himself from the meeting. He, in fact, wrote to the clerk of the House indicating that he was recusing himself from the meeting, given that he recognized that an issue related to his company would be discussed.
So his absence then was he was not just accidentally absent, but indicating then that given the circumstances now before the PAC, it would not be in the best interest of the committee to have one of its members who was under review also there before the organization. That's important for Jamaicans at home.
It's an important distinction, because I've heard it reported elsewhere, which gives the impression that somehow he was just hiding or just chose not to be there. He wrote and indicated why he was not going to be at the meeting.
Let's start off with you, because that pulling out of these companies is part of what I want to get from you, Julian Robinson. The 4 companies named in Tuesday's hearing were not volunteered by the University Hospital of the West Indies. They were extracted under prodding from your committee members. Help us understand, what does that tell us about the culture of transparency at the UHWI, that those names had to be drawn out?
Well, one company's name has been in the media because it was leaked some time ago, a week ago. But the reality is that 4 companies benefited. And I will go further to state that I don't believe it is only 4 companies that would have benefited the tax-exempt status. Remember, the Auditor General only does a sample. And so I believe there are many more companies that would have benefited. And I intend, when we resume in 2 weeks, to request information on how the tax-exempt status has been used over the years and whether there has been abuse beyond just the 4 companies. But as you correctly said, it took pushing and prodding for the names to be made public, because it can't be that we're talking about 4 companies and only one name is in the public domain when the other 3 would have also benefited. And what we found out is that in 2 of the cases, the tax-exempt status was used to purchase items by these companies, who then turned around and sold the very same items back to the university hospital, in some cases at 3 or 4 times the CIF value, and in some cases 10 times the CIF value. So the status was used to provide significant profit for some of these companies.
You said some of these companies, we have 4 before the country: Wilman Sales Company Limited, Supreme Laundry Services, Scientific Medical Services, and Jack Den Limited. We knew about already. The other 3 we didn't. Do you know which of those 3 that we don't know about, or even all 4 of them, had now a finding of them turning around using this tax-exempt status that they received?
Well, we don't know, because you remember, in the report, they only name it as Company 1, Company 2, Company 3, Company 4. So we don't know the specific companies that would have done that. But we will press at the next meeting when we resume in 2 weeks to get the specifics, now that we know the names.
The Auditor General tabled her report in January. That's where we get a lot of this information from, sparking this review by the PAC. That was on the 13th of January. It's now nearly 3 months after. How would you credit the institutional response from the UHWI as the PAC chair in those 3 months? Given what they knew, what became public, and what they can tell you now, how do you credit them?
Well, I think the acting CEO has been very forthright and honest. I think just the public should appreciate this is somebody who had a career in the private sector, headed Guardian Life, and was asked 2 months ago to come in an acting capacity to, quite frankly, try and clean up what existed there. So he was very forthright. He indicated he didn't hold back. He indicated what he could answer, what he could not answer. But what is disturbing, for example, when the Auditor General tabled her report, she could not get information on any data on 51 files related to contracts valued at almost $500 million. Since Mr. Hosing went in, he was able, however he was able to do that, he was able to identify 29 of those files. But what is disturbing is that we still can't find 22 other files. I mean, that boggles my mind that in this day and age, files could just be non-existent.
And are we talking about physical files or perhaps electronic files or a combination of both?
No, these are physical files. That's something I raised. I said, I never thought in 2026 we would deal with physical files. But the failure of the university hospital to use the government has something called GoJab, which is the procurement portal where that information should be uploaded for all contracts. If they were using that, then there would be an electronic copy. But they weren't. They were still doing physical files. And now we're being told after extensive search, 3 months later, they can only find 29 of the 51 files.
This is concerning information. It certainly is something that Jamaicans have been watching since January, expecting now the PAC to continue teasing information out. But there have been calls that have been made already. One group, Young Jamaica from the Jamaica Labour Party, has called for Dennis Gordon's resignation from 3 positions, including from your committee. As a chair of that committee, not as a political figure now, you're chair of the PAC. Is that call appropriate, premature, or irrelevant to the work that your committee is doing?
Right, from my perspective, I don't regard most of their calls as having any credibility, quite frankly. If they were going to have credibility, they should be calling for the resignation of many of the own members of their party. In this case, there's an investigation being done by the Integrity Commission, by the JCF, by Customs. In the specific case related to Jack Dennis Gordon has indicated to me and provided evidence that I've seen that he has paid close to $10.1 million in terms of the duties that should have been paid by his company. That was paid before the meeting took place, actually on Tuesday. All right? Now, I'm not saying that means it obligates him of any responsibility, but I'm just saying there was a report done by Customs. He has accepted the report and he has made the payment. Right? We don't know about the other 3 companies. I will get information from the next meeting at the PAC. Hopefully Customs would have concluded their reports on those other companies. And as I said, we will be seeking information not just on the 4, but on the many others that the Auditor General was not able to complete an investigation.
And those are the 50-odd files, 51 files, only 21 that you're able to find. So that makes this search a little bit more complex. Before you go, PAC Chair, in your capacity, you're having to guide a committee that is doing this deep dive. As you said, the Integrity Commission and MOCA are now carrying out their investigations. At what point does the PAC's public examination of this matter need to be calibrated to make sure that you don't prejudice or risk prejudicing those investigations?
Well, we have a responsibility from the PAC to bring matters to the public's attention. There clearly would be information pertinent to an investigation that we can't reveal. And generally, the reason the Auditor General does not name companies is that if something is referred to the Integrity Commission or to the JCF, that information is redacted. But quite frankly, nothing that we have raised or that we are proving so far, in my view, prejudices any criminal investigation.
All right.
I believe the public has a right to know, given that taxpayers' monies are being spent, and we will continue to press in that regard.
I think that is important for Jamaicans to hear as they watch this play out. Julian Robinson, Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, thank you so very much for joining us this evening inside Lead Story. All right, we'll take a break and come back because the government has a position as well. We'll talk to them after the break on this matter here inside Lead Story.
loves you, and greater love hath no man. Because of his love, he opens the way. He opens eyes, ears, and minds. Open your heart and experience General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and feel his love. Greater love.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Arthur Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The Time by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Story. We're continuing our conversation about what is taking place inside the Public Accounts Committee and the news that we've been watching since January, when the Auditor General's report was revealed to the public and to Parliament. The PAC is now looking at the matter of 4 companies that have benefited from the University Hospital of the West Indies' tax-exempt status and have been found to have been using and abusing that status. The UHWI, though, is responsible for this use and abuse, and we're watching as a nation what takes place. Now, we just finished speaking with Chair of the PAC, Julian Robinson, on the parliamentary dimensions of this matter. Now we speak with Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn, Member of Parliament for St. Andrew West Rural and Government Senator. Good evening, MP Cuthbert-Flynn, and welcome to Lead Story.
Good evening to you. I am not hearing you very well, so I'm straining my ear right now.
I saw you leaning forward, and I thought you were trying to get close to me, and it breaks my heart that you're not. Okay, we're going to see if we can resolve the audio here so that you can talk to us and hear us very clearly as we speak with you about what's going on in the PAC. The Auditor General's report was tabled in Parliament in January of this month. It's been nearly 3 months since then. What has the government done in the last 3 months that you're aware of to respond to the Auditor General's concerns that were found at University Hospital of the West Indies?
Well, if I heard you correctly, yes, that was tabled in the Parliament, and it is now before us at the PAC. And as you heard yesterday, and I'm sure everybody was watching to see how it was unfolding, what was evident to myself, and I think to other members of the PAC, and of course to the general public in Jamaica, were systemic failure in an organization, systemic failure, I believe, with management, systemic failure with how things are, dealt with at the UHWI. And there were so many things that came out that was so egregious. This is my second stint on the PAC, and I'm not sure over the 10 years that I've ever heard, my jaws dropped yesterday when I listened to some of the arguments coming from the CEO and some of the things that were revealed from the Auditor General's report. And, we had to, of course, we could not go on yesterday. We have postponed it to continue in another sitting for the committee. to hear more from this Auditor General's report, but it was quite damning what we all heard yesterday.
It's been
quite shocking.
Very shocking to the nation as well. As a PAC member, when you hear something like this, do you think back to what happened between the time that the Auditor General made these findings public in January and now? What is it that has been done in that time, as far as you're aware?
I did not hear everything you said.
What did they do? What did UHWI do between the Auditor General's report in January and now?
Well, I don't think anything has happened from what we heard yesterday. I know that the board, of course, we have an acting CEO at the university. I know that the Minister Tufton did make some statements, but I'm really not sure what transpired at UHWI as far as the personnel. If there are any change in personnel, and I think that's one of the problems for me. When things happen, something like this, nothing really happens, nothing becomes of it. And I'm hoping after everything is revealed that there will be some changes, because as stated, there are definitely systemic changes that should be made immediately. You know, one thing we all know, taxpayers, you know, we provided last year billions of dollars to UHWI, and it is not a good look what we are hearing when you know that taxpayers' money, you know, is being used to rebuild, to procure equipment, to make sure that our patients are getting the best care. And to hear of the misuse of taxpayers' fund in a fraudulent manner, I think it should be concerning. And I think some sort of a shakeup should happen, and systemic changes must be made.
PSC member Cuthbert Flindo, we also heard that the Jamaica Customs...
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I was just calling your name, saying that the UHWI, we've been told, will have to repay the money. But that's taxpayers' money that they'll have to pay, not these 4 companies that have been highlighted. 4 companies: Supreme Laundry Services, Wilman Sales Company Limited, Scientific Medical Services, and Jack Den Limited. How can PAC get us this money back?
You know, I think it is not fair for it's. And again, when you say that UHWI, the government, we should pay back, I'm not sure. I think it should be definitely those 4 companies that would pay back the funds.
But we have been told,
not taxpayer. I remember, you know.
But hold on,
taxpayers.
Minister Cuthbert Flynn, a moment ago we just heard from Julian Robinson that it could be up to 51 other entities, 29 folders being able to be found, 22 still unable to be found. So those 4 companies, though they are named, are not the only ones. And we also heard from him a moment ago that Jack Den has repaid the taxes that they received, tax exempt, that they were not eligible to receive tax exempt from the UHWI. Is that what you want for all of these 51 companies to do?
Definitely. We should not bear that burden. The taxpayers should not bear that burden. We already provide billions of dollars to UHWI. They misuse the funds, and so they should be the ones who pay back. And so we should not bear that cost.
Dennis Gordon is part of the PAC. You are a part of the PAC. As a sitting member of the PAC, his company is one of the 4 that is named. Your governing party's youth arm has asked for him to resign. What's the government's formal position on what happens with Dennis Gordon on that committee? Are you hearing me, Mr. Cuthbert Flynn? She's not hearing me clearly as we're having this conversation about what happens with now a member of the PAC. We just heard a moment ago from PAC Chair Julian Robinson deciding that he has to now step back, opting, he says, to send in a note saying that he would not be attending the PAC meetings because his company, Jack Den, is one of 4 named organizations that is now under scrutiny from the Public Accounts Committee. But we wanted to hear from PAC member Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn on what happens to him. What happens to Dennis Gordon now? He's a PAC member who is now under review. What happens to him? What's the government's position on what should happen to him? Yeah, we're still trying to make sure that we can hear from her, and we're resolving that line as we now have a conversation about what happens next, especially as we have found out that Jamaica Customs has indicated that, well, it's UHWI, UHWI, the University Hospital of the West Indies, that their tax-exempt status had been used. It is therefore the UHWI that needs to pay it back. But you just heard a moment ago, one company, Jack Den, making the decision to repay. Now, Julian Robinson said before the meeting on Tuesday, but if it's 5 minutes before the meeting or even 5 days before the meeting, this was still something that was done to be caught by the Auditor General in that report released in January. That means that the breach has continued, and we know that this situation is a live one. We're also looking as well at figuring out what is going on at the UHWI. Some of these things we heard the acting CEO say, couldn't understand why we were having people sign off that were no longer there. People signing off on things that don't make any sense. Sign-offs from people who would no longer have been at the organization. Those continue to be issues that we're watching as well. And then I told you earlier, Jack Den holds contracts at 6 major public health facilities. So is there a review that will be coming up with not only Jack Den's contracts, as it has those with major public health facilities, but also the other 3 named entities? And I remind you of what those are. Supreme Laundry Services, their commercial laundry company, Wilman Sales Company, their wholesale supplier of office furniture, Scientific Medical Services. They distribute medical, scientific, and dental supplies, and they serve hospitals, laboratories, and clinics. All of that then has us ask questions that we hope the Public Accounts Committee can answer for us. And when they go back into their next session, PAC Chair Julian Robinson saying in the next 2 weeks they expect to come back. We heard from Julia Cuthbert-Flynn as well, a government PAC member, that she expects there to be more conversation around this when they get back. And so you're looking then to see how we tease out what's going on as we watch the calls from the youth arm of the Jamaica Labour Party asking for the resignation of Dennis Gordon, Member of Parliament, who's also part of the Public Accounts Committee. He is chair of the PNP's Region 3, a sitting member of the Public Accounts Committee, and Member of Parliament for East Central St. Andrew. Now I have to go back and check because my brain might be getting that wrong. But sitting member of parliament, having all these positions, and the youth arm of the JLP saying they need him to step down from all of those roles. Is that an appropriate call at this time, given that MOCA and the Integrity Commission, as well as the PAC, are doing their investigations? The University Hospital of the West Indies is still investigating to find all 51 companies, and we still do not have any findings of wrongdoing. We'll keep you up to date and keep you in the know on this major matter for the next weeks and months to come. We can't be spending big money if we can't account for every dollar that your tax dollars should provide. Or rather, everything that your tax dollars should provide. We'll take a break inside Lead Story and come back to you. Legislation with a big spending tag, trillions this time. But there have been concerns raised about how that legislation looks. We'll talk about that next inside Lead Story.
the internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Jesus Christ loves you, and greater love hath no man. Because of his love, he opens the way. He opens eyes, ears, and minds. Open your heart and experience General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and feel his love. Greater love.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
The government has tabled legislation to establish a National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA. It's designed to coordinate rebuilding efforts after Hurricane Melissa. But civil society organizations, including the Jamaica Environment Trust and Jamaicans for Justice, are warning that the bill may centralize too much power with too few safeguards. Their position in summary is this: the bill as drafted is narrowly conceived, dangerously centralized, and structurally incapable of delivering the transparent, accountable, and resilient reconstruction that Jamaica needs. We're talking about reconstruction efforts valued at approximately $1.9, not billion, people, trillion dollars. Joining me now is Dr. Teresa Rodriguez-Moody, CEO of Jamaica Environment Trust, JET. Dr. Teresa Rodriguez-Moody, thanks for joining us.
And thank you so much for having me.
All right, we watched the NARA bill be spoken about for a very long time. We finally, when the Prime Minister spoke during the budget debate, had that bill tabled. And now you've taken a look at the bill along with Jamaicans for Justice and you've raised issues. What's your core concern with this bill? And is it about speed or is it about accountability?
Well, I think that what we need to be careful of is that while we're trying to achieve a fast recovery, which is really what is being pushed here, is that we don't have shortcuts. And shortcuts can often mean corner cutting. It can mean that maybe there might be issues with the actual project sometimes because we're trying to move so quickly. But I think the real issue here, which was what we've highlighted in our submission, is that it's missing a few things. It's missing that long-term vision in terms of, yes, there is this need to build back better, to have resilience, but it's really limited to Hurricane Melissa. I mean, it has a potential. I mean, in this short space of time, we're entering another hurricane season. What if, I'm not trying to call down anything, but what if there's another major type of disaster? We have a tool here that we could use. So I think it's a matter of broadening it, but also we need to look at transparency. We need to think about, yes, it considers vulnerable locations, but it doesn't actually consider vulnerable peoples. It doesn't talk about its public engagement, meaningful public engagement. It speaks about relevant engagement with relevant people. Who are the relevant people? I think we've actually taken a look at some other examples.
And you've spoken specifically about Dominica, taking a look at their screen legislation and saying, hey, Jamaica, you're not the only one who had to build back after disaster. Here is a place that you can look at. But part of the concern that you've raised is one that's historical as well. 2024, we dealt with Hurricane Beryl. 2025, Hurricane Melissa. Part of the concern that you are raising is that 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029 even, since this bill has an initial period of about 5 years before we go back to the drawing board, because it specifically starts off by saying it's for Hurricane Melissa, we would need to pass another piece of legislation again to have a NARA Part 2?
I mean, essentially, I think that's the limitation of how it is framed. I mean, when we look at how, Dominica may have, how they framed it, they looked at defined climate-related disaster broadly to mean a hurricane, tropical storm, or any other extreme weather event or natural hazard causing death or injury, loss of or damage to livelihood or property, or the serious disruption of the functioning of a community or society. Whereas Jamaica looks at exclusively the our NARA bill, the catastrophic consequences to Jamaica resulting from the passage of Hurricane Melissa. So you can see the differences right there.
The differences are clear though, but it's also meant to be a vehicle to get money into Jamaica. So we have quite a number of donors who want to see the sort of accountability set up that NARA has in order to get some of the funding. We would need a vehicle like NARA. Is this not a purpose-built piece of legislation to create a specific body to allow us to get all of the money that we're hoping to spend? In total, about $2 trillion that we're hoping to get. And so in this particular case, we could just let it pass.
No, I think we need to get it right. Because and this is not about being nitpicking. I mean, there are studies that show, right across the board, that after a hurricane, not just a hurricane, after any major disaster, we have issues of corruption. And there are also examples of organizations similar to NARA that have been set up that are limited in scope, that have issues with transparency, that have issues with proactive disclosure of information. In fact, when I was looking at some of the news, about our Jamaican government going to Peru to look at their model of how, I can't remember, I think it's called ACRA. I'm not quite sure the acronym at the moment, but I think that was the idea for Jamaica to model the NARA off of the model in Peru. But then when you look at some studies of Peru's similar structure, they had issues with lack of transparency, and there were some issues of funds, in terms of accountability and so forth. So we don't want to make a mistake. The reality is that, remember, a lot of this money, some of it is loans, some of it is grant money. We have to pay it back if it's a loan. I think we need to make sure we make proper use of the money. We don't want to see it improperly used, or we can't account for it. And so what we're basically trying to say is, yes, set up a system, but set up a system that has all the proper checks and balances so that people can understand. For example, there is something about talking about projects. There is just about after the projects are approved. What about pipeline projects? What about communities that want to get their voices heard? What about making sure that the language is there, that we need to ensure that these major projects have their environmental and social impact assessments done? Because sometimes we see projects that are rushed. We need to get it done. We need to spend the money. We need to build, we need to get things in place, and we don't do the proper assessments, and then we have another hurricane. We've seen so many examples of this, where we rush to get something done without doing the proper assessments, and boom, one little rainfall, one little heavy breeze, and it mash up. Well, so this is what we're trying to avoid.
You're trying to make sure that we don't have to deal with that again. And the bill contains no mandatory environmental or social impact assessment requirement before cabinet approves. So that's something that you and Jamaicans for Justice have highlighted in your joint submission. But your submission doesn't make just one or two recommendations. It makes 17. If Parliament passes this bill without amendment, what's a practical consequence for Jamaicans whose homes and communities are still waiting to be rebuilt?
Well, the practical consequence is that there's a lot of information that we won't know about. There's a lot of money that will be spent that we won't exactly know how it will be spent until maybe after the fact. The projects, we won't know about them until after they've been approved. There is a lot of there is something about indemnification of the CEO. So if things aren't, when we talk about accountability, and accountability is a major issue that we've seen highlighted by many different groups, especially recently, that we'll see projects being done, and then there is this clause that says, we indemnify the CEO or something to that effect. I will look for the exact clause, but the point is that this whole thing about checks and balances, accountability, will not be there. And this is not a little bit of money. This is millions, billions, trillions of dollars that we need to ensure that is accounted for and is spent for the benefit of Jamaicans and future generations to come.
If that is the case, then help us out, because you're talking about a lack of accountability, and somebody at home is saying, Jody, Teresa, you get it wrong. The Prime Minister talked about JAMROC, the Jamaica Reconstruction and Resilience Oversight Committee. It is meant to do the overseeing of this new body, the NARA. It's meant to operate in a similar way we had to EPOC, the Economic Partnership Oversight Committee. We have oversight. Why is that not enough for you?
Well, it's not mentioned in the bill. So I think, one thing that we've learned in this country is that if it's not stated as in black and white in legislation, there is a reason. It can be we can find all different ways why it couldn't be done, or it wasn't done. And so we want to avoid loose language. We want to avoid things like guidelines or, I think it's very important that if this is going to become law, that it is clearly included in the law. And that's one of the things that we're asking for.
You mean that JAMROC, this oversight body, is clearly included in the NARA legislation so that this accountability layer is now given weight and force of law?
Correct. So it's not just an announcement or something that was said by the PM, but it's actually there written into the legislation.
Let me help close out this segment here, because someone is listening and saying, can we then do it? We have the devastation of Hurricane Melissa. We have a piece of legislation that you and Jamaicans for Justice has said doesn't quite meet the mark. Can we get a piece of legislation, a bill delivering resilience without compromising accountability, or is that the tension? You can't get one without the other.
No, of course you can. I mean, Jamaica wouldn't be the first to do it. Other countries have done it. I think where there's a will, there's a way. I think we've seen our government do things in very short order when they want to do it. And I think that this is just one of those things. If we say that we're committed to transparency and accountability, making sure that all the checks and balances are followed, then just put it into the bill. Just put those checks and balances into the legislation, and not just have it as something that is said in a presentation.
If that is the position, then what's one big thing that you would need to see change in this legislation, even if they didn't take everything else?
If I were to find one big thing.
Maybe two if I was to stretch for you.
All right. I'd love to see this whole issue of public engagement, meaningful public engagement. I think that's very important. The people that have been affected must be consulted on the projects that are being implemented for their benefit. I think that's extremely important. And I think that we need to have, at the very onset, frame the bill in a very different way. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of narrowly framed. I think we need to frame it with that long-term vision and transitioning. So at the end of 3, 4, 5 years, when we've done everything that we have set out to do, it's not the end of, because there might be another hurricane, there will be another hurricane. We don't know at what scale or level, but there will be another hurricane, and therefore we need to ensure that we don't have to recreate the wheel again.
I think
that
that's
it transitions into something else.
And I think that's so important. We don't want to have to sit down and think of legislation for NARA 2 when we already have NARA before us. Thank you, Dr. Teresa Rodriguez-Moody, CEO of Jamaica Environment Trust, JET. All right, good to have you in with us. Still ahead, a war in the Middle East is about to make itself felt in Jamaican supermarkets. Can you afford it? That's up next.
Change does not happen overnight. It takes vision, commitment, and courage to reform.
So we created a number of executive agencies, which I believe, and I can say, having left this thing, was one of the most successful initiatives undertaken in the reform process.
But transformation isn't easy.
We found in several ministries, agencies, and departments, you had square pegs in round holes.
You could almost say that public sector transformation is not a JLP policy, it's not a PNP policy, it is national policy.
There was political willingness, there was bipartisan support for going through with the reforms, there was societal support, a lot of societal sacrifices. People of Jamaica made a lot of sacrifices. And businesses, the private sector, everybody was engaged in this journey.
We want to continue to reform the public sector, to allow the public sector to provide its services to the Jamaican people, provide services to the private sector. And the idea is that those services must be more accessible. Those services must be more affordable. Those services must be faster. They must be more personable and comfortable for the citizen.
Watch Building a Better Public Sector, a 4-part docuseries right here on CVM, commencing April 5 and aired every Sunday in April at 3 p.m. Brought to you by the Transformation
Global events are not distant, they're economic. And as conflict continues abroad this month, and it's our brand new month, so it's April this month, Jamaicans are being warned to expect increases at the pump, in the supermarket, and in the cost of imported pharmaceuticals. We're a small island importing economy. We do not set the price of oil. We do not control global supply chains. But we absorb every shock they produce. Joining me now is Richard Pandui, CEO and Managing Director of the Seprod Group. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Pandui.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good night, listeners.
We were supposed to have you yesterday, but Richard Pandui was distressed by the Reggae Boys and so could not join us inside Lead Story. How are you feeling today?
My apologies. I didn't want to move from a seat in case they could score, and when we'd be on a public holiday today. That was my expectation.
Well, you know what? They're currently having a public holiday right now in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Minister of Labour, said that they need to celebrate this wondrous occasion. We already had our public holiday in 1997. No more public holidays for us. Richard Pandui.
Jamaica gifted DR,
Aye. But the lack of public holiday here is also starting off what might be a hard season for not only us but others across the world. Your company, Seprod, operates across food manufacturing, distribution and retail across the island and the wider Caribbean. Now, far, far away, this place that Jamaicans have now learnt about, the Strait of Hormuz, has closed. What's this war doing to your actual operating costs right now?
So, like all Jamaicans, we're starting to feel the effect. The first thing that has impacted all of us is the price of oil, right? That translates straight to our energy price. For those viewers who have seen their light bill for this month, where I got mine 2 days ago, you'll see a sharp rise in the cost of electricity. And therefore, that's already impacting the production cost.
And we've already heard from JPS that in the months to come, they said in their email titled Oil and War, that we will be seeing even higher prices. So it's not a one-off spike. It's now likely to stay with us.
But even at the pump, for the last 3 weeks, the ex-refinery price has increased by $4.50. Now, based on the pricing policy at Petrodam, that's the maximum price change they can do, up or down. And therefore, they have given the maximum increase for the last 3 weeks, and I expect that to continue. So either way, we're already starting to feel the effect in our pockets. It's muted because in terms of inventory of food, pharmaceutical, fertilizer on the ground, there would have been inventory on the ground. We all would have inventory. And so those are still being passed on through the system at those prices. So therefore, the full effect has not yet been seen. But I think from mid-April onwards, consumers, producers, everybody is going to start to hurt a little bit more. Going to hurt more, for sure.
So can I say for April 15?
I think that's mid-April onwards, that would be a kind of a data looking at, because by that time you start, this war is gone. It's in its 4th week, I think it is. So you're talking about 6 weeks. I imagine that in a place like Petrodam, the kind of inventory that I've had, that have been that type of inventory. The inventory that companies like ours that have had is between 4 to 6 weeks in general. Because you don't really want to type inventory, your cash flow, a lot of inventory. So this is, I believe, in next by mid-April onwards, you're going to start seeing more impact. But already, as I said, the price at the pump, price and the light bill, which automatically translates to price in our water bill. Those must-spend things have already started moving.
Talk to me about CEPROD. When you're seeing increases, where are you seeing the highest increases in your product lines?
So I want to remind viewers, right? So when we talk about oil, the first thing we think about is oil in its natural form, but oil has a lot of byproducts. Byproducts that you have in your everyday life, all your packaging, down to your bread package, your package for your juice, your package for your sodas, pharmaceutical byproducts, urea, the fertilizers, all of these are byproducts of oil. And already, when you look at fertilizer price, 70% increase. You look at packaging price, all the notification from our suppliers speaking in the region of 5 to 10% at the first round. So almost all the inputs are starting to feel that impact already in terms of price change. Now, obviously, we have inventory and those things will pass through, but in fact, the IMF this week issued a warning to low-income countries, which Jamaica is not a low-income, but they've already issued food security warning to low-income countries. So it's starting. It's like a tsunami coming based on what's happening. We have a delayed impact here, but the tsunami is coming and we have to prepare for it. Now, my conversation with you is not about alarming viewers, but it's about saying that this reality and we need to start putting in plan to mitigate that. In separate, going to your specific question, we have started looking at every aspect of our organization. Anyway, there's fat, anyway, there's costs that we can move because our business depends on consumers buying our goods, right? And if it don't make sense to have the goods and the consumers can't afford it. So we're going to have to find every possible avenue to make sure we can mitigate the impact on our consumers. So the prices will increase, but hopefully be in a position where there's some level of affordability where consumers can continue to buy. Because we need it to keep our production going, to keep people employed. So it's going to be a long haul. And even if the war were to stop, tomorrow, I believe the price of oil is going to stay at a level above where it was pre-war.
And that is because one refinery capacity in sections of the world has been destroyed. That will take time to rebuild. And the longer the war goes on as well, we've also heard talk of the dangers of closing down refining. Gulf producers, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iraq are approaching maximum storage capacity. And when they run out of space, we're being told to store oil, they will be forced to shut down their wells, to permanently close them. And permanently closing an oil well can damage long-term geological, can rather cause long-term geological damage to the field itself. So this might be an architectural shock. Not just a one-off, the war did it sort of thing. What do we do though? Because countries around the world have started putting in place things. You spoke about the warning to low-income countries. The International Energy Agency has said this is the worst we have ever seen, saying that it goes above the 1970s oil shock. Yes, and countries across the world have started putting things in place. So Philippines has declared a national energy emergency. Pakistan has closed schools for 2 weeks and hiked high-octane fuel prices. Japan has released its largest ever inventory of strategic oil reserves. Nepal has said if you want cooking oil, if you want gas cylinders, you're only getting half a cylinder. You can't get a full cylinder anymore. We don't have that to give you. And other countries have said, listen, we're not subsidizing directly, but we're seeing if we can help out. In that same tsunami coming to us sort of feeling, I liken it to COVID-19, where we saw other countries dealing with something and we needed to put things in place. What can then we put in place here on the ground, seeing the tsunami coming, knowing that it's coming to us next?
And that's an excellent question, and this is why I'm actually on the program, trying to make sure we start that process of thinking and planning. And in fact, the UK, the government addressed their nation, I think, yesterday or this morning.
This morning, the same thing with the Prime Minister of Australia. So they have already come out in front saying things are getting difficult.
And I think that, it must have been very difficult for the Jamaica government when they're doing the budget presentation last week or the week before, because you're doing a budget that actually is already irrelevant based on geopolitical situation. I believe that this is a time that the government, private sector, and consumer groups need to come together and put measures in place. I think there are things we can do. I think for example, let's take food security. 60% of our food that we consume is imported. Our food bill is around 1.3 to 1.5 billion US dollars a year. And we may have to look at sourcing differently. The fact is that we do import. And then there are many restrictions on where we can import from. For example, we can't import beef or those things from places like Brazil, where the prices are considerably cheaper. I think we need to look at measures. Where can we now source differently to make sure that our people can have products that they can buy they can afford better. I mean, I think the government is going to get also a windfall from these increases. When you do the budget at what, $70 a barrel, I'm figuring.
60 is what they said.
Yeah, 62 actually. And it's now $100, and you have a SCT on a higher price. You're getting a bigger windfall to government, right? All the prices are going up, so the duties are actually, the dollar value is going to be greater. So they're going to have to use that windfall to kind of create a cushion effect. I mean, maybe some of the duties that we're charging has to pass through the consumers, and then people like producers and distributors going to have almost an agreement to ensure that there's no unnecessary passing on of cost to consumers in this time. So we're going to have to look at measures in a very, very deliberate way. And as consumers, we ourselves, I mean, maybe all of us shouldn't drive to work every day. Maybe we're going to have to mandate carpooling and say, how can we then, save on energy? Because this is money that we're spending. And, in Jamaica, we have a thing where everybody does their own thing. No, we're going to have to work together to get through this. It's going to be, I think, for the rest of the year, going to be a serious challenge. And cash flow is going to be a challenge, whether it's in our household or in businesses. And we have to operate and live differently.
I think it's going to be important for persons to heed your words, Richard Pandui, as we talk about this. It seems far away, but the tsunami is coming. Thanks so much for joining us today inside Lead Story. Rough words you had to say. You couldn't say anything cheerful. No reggae boys win. No happy words about a tsunami coming, but a realism that allows us to plan ahead.
But I just want viewers to know that this is not a time to panic. This is a time to plan and to put things in place. And that's my word to you. Let's not panic, but let's be aware of what's coming.
I think that's super important, and I'm glad that you're able to join us today inside Lead Story to share it with us. All right, that's it for today's edition of Lead Story. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and on behalf of the entire CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Story. Have a fantastic day, and I hope you stay safe. Up next, CVM News.